Let's get ready for Monday night as we cap the Assiniboia card for Monday, June 12th.
Today's video is brought to you by Assiniboia Downs Gaming and Event Center. And be sure to tune in to Trust the Profits Live Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern for Monday Night Lights, hosted by Matthew DeSantis.
Salutations and welcome, friends. I'm your host of this episode of Capping the Card. My name is Matthew DeSantis, and you can find me on Twitter at the handle @Failed to Menace. Well, welcome to this edition of Capping the Card, where I'm going to go race 1 through 7 for the Monday night, June 12th card at Assiniboia Downs. As you see in the intro, we host the Monday Night Lights every Monday night starting at 8 p.m. Eastern right here on Trust the Profits. So come hang out with us. We have live betting, handicapping, analysis. We cover the races, we show the races, and we have guests from across the horse racing industry coming and joining us. It's a lot of fun. In addition, we have a great partnership with StableDuel, which is a really fun fantasy horse racing game that you can play on Monday nights at Assiniboia as well. And that's part of why I like doing this Capping the Card, because with that StableDuel contest, you have a $50,000 fantasy budget. You have to select 10 horses. Average cost per horse is going to be $5,000. The cost of the horse is pegged to the morning line, so the horses that are heavy favorites are going to cost you more than the long shots, etc. So part of the rationale behind Capping the Card is I'm going to give you my top pick in all 7 races, but I'm also going to give you my value play, horses that I think in some cases may have a chance at winning, but more importantly, have a chance of hitting the board and earning you points in StableDuel. So if you've not played StableDuel yet, it's a really fun game. Consider checking it out. We have a lot of fun with it, but listen, this is also just about straight up handicapping and analysis, and we'll do that too. So like I said, press that subscribe button here on YouTube to get all of our great content that we have on Trust the Profits, from live streams to handicapping episodes to horse racing news and everything in between. Additionally, like this video and let me know in the comments, what is your top play on Monday night at Assiniboia? I'd love to hear from you. Love to hear what your thoughts are on where you're going to be going with maybe a top pick, your top value thoughts. Love to see it from the chat. So let us know. Well, like I said, the rationale of this, pretty straightforward. 1 through 7, top pick, top value, playing every single race. Let's get going. We're going to start things off with an optional claimer, $10,000 race, going 5.5 furlongs on the dirt for 3-year-old and up. And this is going to be our first race of the night at Assiniboia. And in this one, you know, it's interesting. There's a few horses. My top pick is obviously Golden Eyed at 7-2. I did take a long look at the number 2 horse, the Boss Factor. But the reality is that while this horse does get close and speed figure certainly makes some level of sense in this race, this horse is 0 for 2 winning at this distance, and is more importantly 0 for 9 winning on dirt. That's a little bit of a concern for me, for a horse that admittedly is taking a little bit of a drop in class. Ran an optional claimer 15 last time, now back down to the optional claimer 10, but that 0 for 9 lifetime record on the dirt and only 2 times even hitting the board out of those 9 races gives me a little bit of pause about whether or not I want to use this horse at 9-5 as my top choice. And you know, like I said, then there's the other horse, number 5, Trumpum, who is probably going to be the speed, but faded badly last time out. Now, you could say that was against a pretty nice horse in Big Nick, but I mean, this was a horse that was on the lead and then faded to 12.5 lengths back. Might still need another one. The Rick Wise barn is a little cold right now. Antonio Whitehall, the jockey, is obviously, you know, red hot. But ultimately, all of this led me to Golden Eyed, who's making the same sort of class drop that the favorite is taking, the number 2 horse, the Boss Factor. Ran in that optional claimer 15 last time out. Here's the thing. This is a really hot barn. Gary Danielson is 5 for 8 in the money with 3 wins already on the meet, winning at a 38% clip. Also very, very good at dropping horses at a 50% tag. Remember, out 15,000 last time, now down to 10,000 this time. So that class drop, usually you get to see a lot of success. Him 67% winning. This is a horse that also has won multiple times at this optional claiming 10 level last year. If you go and look, this horse improved second back off the layoff. This horse has won at this level multiple times, 3 times, in fact, last year at Assiniboia. So has success at this level, has success at this distance. 3 for 14 winning, 6 for 14 in the exacta at Assiniboia Downs. Is 6 for 8 in the money lifetime, 3 wins. So I'm going to go with Golden Eyed here as ultimately my top pick in this one. Now, my value play, I'm going to go with the biggest shot on the board as a value, and I think it's a reasonable one, which is Gold Special. Listen, he's coming out of that same exact race, and none of them ran bang up. The 2, the 3, and the 6, nobody ran a huge race that day. But obviously, the 2 and the 3 are shorter prices. The 6 is 15-1 for Wendy Anderson, very accomplished trainer, and Ronaldo Cumberbatch, very accomplished jockey. This, I think, also kind of makes sense. This is a horse that should benefit from a little bit extra distance. Granted, we're only going an extra half furlong, but still, this is a horse that, has won at 6 furlongs at this optional claiming 15 level, has turned in some nice performances at that level in the past over the last year. Now is dropping down a little bit to that optional claimer 10. I think takes a little bit of a step forward here. 15-1, biggest price on the board. I would use this horse underneath in exotics in a trifecta. For instance, I think this horse runs better than 15-1 on the morning line. I think he runs better than some of these other horses than you might think. And like I said, second back from the layoff, this horse typically shows a little bit of progression or steps up in class in doing so. So that's going to be my value play in race number 1. Well, let's move to race number 2, which is an $18,000 allowance. Again, going that 5.5 furlong distance. And this one is for 3-year-olds and up. And it is, an interesting race in that you have some horses that just broke their maiden who are in this race and who are running, I think, potentially really big races. And that's, of course, the number 3, Jeff Fafa, and the number 5, Private Frank. Those are my top 2 plays. And part of the rationale here is the way in which the track at Assiniboia has been playing over the last week, which has been very speed favoring. If you've been watching Assiniboia at all, those horses that have gotten out on the lead in the top 2, maybe 3 positions, that track carries them home. Inside speed has been particularly effective. Jeff Fafa and Private Frank are both horses that broke their maidens last time out. Private Frank, my value play, I'll get to in a second, but let's talk about Jeff Fafa, who I really like in this spot. I mean, granted, it's the 8-5 morning line favorite for Wendy Anderson with Neville Stevenson up. This is the one who wired the field last time out at a maiden special weight 20 and won by 10 1/4 lengths and did that off the bench. The other reason I like this horse actually ran in this spot last year as a maiden. This horse had run in a couple maiden races and then, without breaking its maiden, goes and steps up to an optional or to an allowance 19,000, non-winners of 2, and actually finishes 3rd that race. Hits the board and shows a lot of talent, and actually had recorded its best speed figure to date prior to that maiden special weight victory. So this is a horse that I just think can absolutely hold his own. We've already seen him run against winners before, and that was when, before he had ever even won a race. So now he gets the race. He gets a little bit more confidence. Second back from the layoff. Jeff Fafa makes a lot of sense. Same song, second verse a little bit with Private Frank. My value play at 5-1 on the board for Tom Gardopy with Ronald Ali aboard. This is one who came off the bench, ran in one race last year to Assiniboia in August, comes off the bench in May over that Memorial Day weekend, and absolutely blitzes the field with inside speed. Actually has probably more speed than the number 3, Jeff Fafa. So this is one who I think could absolutely take them gate to wire, blitz the competition, may need the lead, but very well could follow the field and much faster fractions than what you saw. For instance, the other horse that's a major contender in here is the number 4, One Sky. Interestingly enough, if you look at the fractions that Private Frank ran last time out and compare that to what One Sky ran in his first race at Assiniboia this year, those fractions are completely night and day. I mean, he's running a full second faster over the half mile and was able to sustain that and just continue to draw out, ran almost a full 2 seconds faster in terms of that 5 furlong distance. So, yes, he ran on a speed favoring track that day, but again, that's kind of been the MO at Assiniboia. So I'm going to use him as my value play in race number 2. Well, let's go to race number 3, which is a 5.5 furlong race, which is a $5,000 claimer for 3-year-old and up, fillies and mares. And this was one where, again, it was hard to get by the favorite in this spot. And that ultimately ended up being the number 3, Lipstick Lady. And I mentioned Rick Wise, a little bit of a cold start here to the meet. And certainly, is 0 for 5 so far at the meet, but you have an incredibly hot jockey in Antonio Whitehall, who is winning 33% of his mounts right now. And it just seems like he's winning everything. And he seems like he understands how the track is playing. That's the other thing that I think is very effective here. Whitehall, particularly last week, it seems like really took advantage of, understood, I need the rail, I need to be forward, and really took advantage of that, I thought, in a very effective way. Listen, this horse has never won at Assiniboia, but is 4 for 6 in the money there. I think it's a horse that should absolutely sit a good trip, and I think will sit on or very close to the rail and can flash that early speed. Has an 88 time form US early pace indicator, which is very comparable in this sort of a spot and should sit just off of my value play, the number 5, Someone Else. But referring to Lipstick Lady, listen, this is one who had kind of rose up the ranks last year in terms of just, turning in really solid performances in stakes races and optional claiming 15s, etc. Now you're in a claiming 5. And it feels like this is a horse that probably needed one off the bench. And now you're going to see this horse's best effort this next time out. So you've typically seen a little bit of progression when this horse has taken that next step next time out. So, after a long layoff. So I'm going to use Lipstick Lady. I know Wise is a little cold as a trainer right now. He's got to get off the schneid one of these days. I think this is the kind of spot where he's going to be able to do it. Now, in terms of my value play, I do really like Someone Else quite a bit at 6-1. And this is for Devin Gittins with Deshaun Bino aboard. And like this horse a lot. Came off the bench and won at the level below this, won at a non-winners of 3. But just went wire to wire on that field and won pretty easily. Was never really challenged, and beat a horse, Tapiture Way, who I think a lot of people thought was going to be pretty good, Artisan Dancer. So it beat a decent field there among that Assiniboia group. I feel like this is a horse that, again, you've seen this horse coming out of Fort Erie, coming out of Woodbine. Those Woodbine horses have been running particularly well here. That all-weather to dirt transition has gone well. This is a horse that is 3 for 3 in the money career at Assiniboia Downs, 5 for 8 in the money at the distance in his career. So this horse makes a lot of sense at this distance, at this track, and could very well take him gate to wire. So I think this is one that, like I said, makes a lot of sense. The speed figures fit in this spot. 6-1, you're getting a really nice price on the morning line for Someone Else. Well, let's move to race number 4 on the card, which is a maiden claimer. And listen, the chalk continues and this one is probably the easiest bet of the night, I would say. And this is going 5.5 furlongs, $5,000 maiden claimer for 3-year-old and up fillies and mares. This one feels, again, kind of like the slam dunk of the night, in my opinion, which is Celebration Dance, who came up from Tampa last time out and ran in a maiden special weight 20,000 and finished third that race in an 8-horse field and lost to Olive's Candy, who I thought was much the best that day. And on paper was going to obviously the best horse, was challenged a little bit by Sparkling Silver, who I think is a pretty nice horse too. Finished third behind the two of them. But I mean, now you're taking this big class drop. You're going from a maiden special weight 20 down to a maiden claiming 5. This is a horse whose speed figures tower above everybody else in the field. You get Antonio Whitehall, Shelley Brown off to a decent start here at the meet as well. Those two team up and hit at a pretty decent rate also. I just think this horse makes a ton of sense. If you're playing any sort of horizontals, this feels like the single and the free square on the card. Remember that $50,000 guaranteed pick 4 will be something to obviously take a look at and would start here in this race. So if you're playing that $50,000 guaranteed pick 4, this feels like a very easy single in the first leg of that. I really like this horse quite a bit. Now, listen, I don't like giving out favorites all the time. So when I do have to give out favorites, I want to make sure I give you a big price now and again. And that is the number 5, Tale of Atreides. Listen, Jerry Gorno got off to a really cold start at this meet as a trainer. I think at one point he was 0 for 13, even hitting the board. Now he's gotten 32 horses entered so far during this Assiniboia Downs meet. And so really over the last 19 entries, because he started again 0 for 13. So over the last 19 entries, he's actually 12 for 19 hitting the board with 3 wins. He's starting to heat up. I think a lot of his horses just needed one off the bench. Tale of Atreides is coming out of that exact same maiden special weight race, a different maiden special weight race at 5.5 furlongs at Assiniboia. and is doing the same sort of thing that the favorite Celebration Dance is doing, is taking that big glass drop from that maiden special weight 20 down to a maiden claiming 5. Listen, he was well beaten in that maiden special weight race, hasn't really shown much to this point, but was running at Houston and Lone Star before that. I just think this horse, with the class drop, the barn is starting to heat up a little bit. The jockey trainer combination with Badgery is a solid one at a 21% win rate with a 226 ROI. I feel like this is a really nice horse to include in your StableDuel barn. It's all going to cost you almost nothing. I think it's going to only cost you like $50 in StableDuel. So really allows you to spend up in other spots. And I think this horse runs a decent race because from a speed figure standpoint, he's not that far behind the others. His last race, he recorded a 20 Beyer speed figure. The second choice on the board, always the little one, the number 1 horse, recorded a 25 Beyer speed figure last time out at a maiden 5. So maiden claiming 5. So, the horse that is the third choice on the board or fourth choice, Peyton Kennedy, the best speed figure that horse has ever recorded is a 6. This horse is not that far off. If it's able to run the race it did last time, I think this horse can absolutely hit the board. So I like this one as a value play underneath strictly in race number 4. Well, let's move to race number 5, which is going 7 furlongs. So we're doing 2 turns. Remember that? 2 turns at Assiniboia for 7 furlongs. If you're new to the track, claiming race $7,500 for 3-year-old and up. And when they start stretching out, it's an interesting dynamic because they're going 2 turns. But when you do any sort of pedigree analysis on these horses in terms of looking at their dams and sires and how they are going a little bit longer, there obviously is the differentiation between sprinting and routing. And routing, though, is defined as more than a mile. Sprinting is a mile and less, or less than a mile. And then, like I said, routing is a mile or more. Well, the thing is, often that's still a 1-turn race, a 1-turn mile. And 7 furlongs are usually sprints. And they are still considered a sprint here, but you're doing 2 turns. And that's a very different dynamic than doing a 1-turn sprint. So it gets a little tricky looking back at that and looking at horses' past form. Ultimately, I ended up going with Gone Somewhere as my top choice. I'm fading the favorite here, who's the number 1, Heavenly Trip. That's a horse that, I'm not sure this horse wants 7 furlongs is, I think, the issue here. It's 1 at 6, 1 at 6.5. But again, those were 1-turn races. I don't know if this horse wants 2 turns, 7 furlongs. This will be the first time this horse ever tries that. So I think that's something that's particularly noteworthy here. Like I said, I like Gone Somewhere, the number 3 horse, as my top play for Wendy Anderson with Neville Stevenson aboard. This is a winner of the last race. The last race this horse was in was an optional claimer 10. So first of all, we're stepping down in class a little bit. But more importantly, the winner of that race, Big Nick, went on to win a $25,000 stakes race next out at Assiniboia just last week. So that's coming it back as clearly a very live race. Gone Somewhere finished 3rd that day. But listen, Big Nick pulled away, won that race by 5.5 lengths, plus really finished 3rd by a length to the 2nd place horse. So was right there, wasn't too far off. I think second, your second time at Assiniboia, this horse I think is still pretty live coming out of that Turf Paradise, circuit a little bit, which we've seen actually be quite successful. A little bit more time in the barn. I prefer this one over the other favorite. This is a horse that's also won at a mile and has demonstrated the ability to go 2 turns and run effective races going 2 turns. So this horse, like I said, has had some nice races at 6.5, has won at a mile. I think that's going to be the difference there in terms of how I'm approaching race number 5 in terms of where I'm going for my top pick. But now my value play is just right to the inside, and that is Et2 Babu for Jared Brown with Antonio Whitehall aboard. The other thing to mention here, and this is something which if you have never gone into the player portal at Assiniboia Downs website, make sure to do that because you can watch this video here. You can also get a ton of free content from free past performances, charting horse value data, Horse Racing Nation data. One of the things Horse Racing Nation did last year was they really identified that if you are doing routing races, 2-turn races at Assiniboia, you really want to be in the inside 3 post positions. That inside post positions were kind of a cheat code last year. Now, we're going to see if that's still the case, but there's a reason I went to the inside posts in these 2 as my top pick and top value play. I'll go on 7 furlongs here. Et2 Babu, 8-1 on the boarding line. I think this is a really good horse. I think this horse will get bet down. This horse won last time out, recording a 54 Beyer speed figure. Coming out of that Turf Paradise circuit that I just mentioned has yielded a lot of effective horses thus far. Brown is a very effective trainer at this level. Whitehall, I've already said, very strong at this at this track right now. This horse is 6 for 9 in the money at Assiniboia. Just feels like a very honest horse in a lot of ways. 13 for 33 lifetime in the money, but feels like when you get to Assiniboia, this horse kind of perks up. Has won at this distance before, so I'm going to give Etu Bapu a shot here. And like I said, this horse has demonstrated some ability to do 2 turns, handle a little bit longer. Actually, it had handled longer effectively on the turf before at Turf Paradise. It's actually gone a mile and a 16th. So this horse won't have an issue going 7 furlongs. It is in good form. It's not coming second back or even third back from a layoff. This is a horse that's been running pretty consistently. You would imagine is going to be pretty fit and ready to roll here. So that's where I'm going to go as my top value play. Well, let's move on to race number 6 on the card, which is the penultimate race on Monday night. This is a $5,000 claimer going 5.5 furlongs for 3-year-olds and up, I should say, not just 3-year-olds, but 3-year-olds and up. And, this one is an interesting race because I took a long look at obviously some of the favorites here. Took a look at Terra Tattoo, who is coming back from a pretty long layoff and is making the transition from synthetic to turf, to dirt, I should say. Now, I just said the synthetic to dirt transition has been an effective one. The all-weather to dirt, particularly from Woodbine to Assiniboia, has been good. However, this horse was kind of declining towards the end of last year. Has run well off the bench before, so the horse has demonstrated ability to come back from the bench before, but this horse has never run 5.5 furlongs. And I think this horse, when you look at this horse's running lines, this horse would prefer to go a little bit longer. I mean, this horse's best efforts are typically at 6.5, 7. I think this is a horse that's going to run really well later in the meet at Assiniboia when they start stretching these races out a little bit more. I just think off the bench, this horse on the inside rail doesn't have any speed. That's concerning to me. So I'm going to kind of fade the number 1. I took a long look at the number 2, Arrogance, as well, for Shelley Brown with Antonio Whitehall aboard, second back from a layoff. The horse, there's a lot of things to like. The horse also, though, does not have blazing early speed, and I don't know what sort of positioning this horse is going to get early in the race. We'll see. Actually had a little bit of a maintenance work earlier this month, just last week, so in between races here at Assiniboia. And certainly Brown is very good second back off the layoff, 24%. It just felt like maybe this horse, again, just may not get the right trip. Finished 5th last time out and kind of ran just on a carousel, against Saxon Saga and I Love My Life and Adjournment. And it just kind of faded, was 5th kind of the whole way around and out of a 5-horse field. Maybe there's progression there, certainly, but I just wonder how much there's going to be progression. Obviously, there's a class drop going from an optional claimer 15 to a claiming 5. But like I said, I'm going to go with a horse that just broke its maiden, and this is Frank's Reload. And, stop me if you've heard this before, early speed. This is kind of a lone speed horse in a lot of ways. Devin Gittins has had a nice start to the meet. 50% of his entries are hitting the board and have been in the money. The two of them, when Deshaun Bino and Gittins team up, they're winning 50% of their races with a $6 ROI. So that's not a bad deal. Limited sample size, granted, but so far at Assiniboia, 2 for 4 with 2 wins, and those are on bigger prices. Listen, this horse went from all weather to dirt, perked up, and ran its best race ever on the dirt. And I just think this horse makes a lot of sense. You see this happen when horses finally win. They get confidence. Horse demonstrated the ability to win off the bench last time out. Now you're getting second back from a layoff. And this horse represents lone speed in the race. I think can take him gate to wire here, especially with a little bit more conditioning. Held on to win by 3/4 of a length. But I think now second back, going to 5.5 won't be an issue here for Frank's Reload. Now, in terms of my value play, I'm going to go right next door to the number 5, Carolina Gent. 20-1 on the morning line for Wendy Anderson with Ronaldo Cumberbatch, second back from a layoff. This is a horse that I just think can go a little bit longer and would prefer to go a little bit longer. I actually think this horse is better at like 6.5, 7. That said, I think 5.5 might be nice. This horse has decent enough positioning speed, especially breaking from a little further outside, and has some races to run back to. Certainly, in terms of being able to run well enough to win, the connections are very solid, winning at a 21% clip when Anderson and Cumberbatch team up with a 224 ROI. This is a little bit, like I said, it's a shot downfield. I would use this horse strictly underneath. I would not use this horse as a win contender, but I would use this horse at the bottom end of trifectas. I'd use this horse in StableDuel because I think this horse is going to outrun its odds at 20-1 on the morning line. Let's go to the final race on the card, which is a $5,500 claimer going 5.5 furlongs for 3-year-olds and up. And this one, it's an interesting dynamic here in this race. I really do like the number 4 Lucky Break quite a bit here, and it's one that I think you're not going to get a big price on it, but I think this is one for Steve Kepler Jr. with Jorge Carreno aboard. I think makes a lot of sense, and this is one who is just extremely consistent. 8 for 15 in the money. At this distance, ran second last time out at a higher level, claiming 7,500. Now we're down to claiming 5,500. Likes to come from just off the pace, but has enough early tactical speed not to be sitting too far back. This is a horse that'll be sitting, I would imagine, 3 to 4 lengths off of the pace. I can live with that with the way the track is playing right now. But this is one who I just think, is very consistent in a field where you see some kind of wild deviations in terms of speed figures. You also have a couple of horses here. The number 1, Richie's Got Swagger, and the number 3, Diddley. These are both 9-year-old horses coming back from a layoff, and they both have good races to run back to at times, and I took a long look at both of them. I just worry when horses get to this age, what do you got coming off the bench? And, the trainers are not necessarily known for getting horses ready off the bench as well. So that's something to be a little bit concerned with, I think, in my opinion. So that's why I kind of look past those two as my top pick, and ultimately went with the current favorite, the morning line favorite, Lucky Break, who is 2 for 2 in the money at Assiniboia. And like I said, 8 for 15 in the money at the distance. Now, in terms of my value play, I took a little bit of a look at the number 5, Little Toe for Jerry Gorno. Thought about that one a little bit, ran halfway decent. The concern there is this horse is actually stepping up in class a little bit, had been running in claiming 2,500s and starter allowance 3,500s, is now running for a much bigger purse than what this horse normally runs for. So a little worried about that dynamic. And ultimately I went to the number 6, Rydom, for Curtis Maxwell with Deshaun Bino aboard. This one, it should be the speed of the speed in the race. And it's just that easy. This horse, faded last time out in an optional claimer 10, going 5 furlongs off the bench. We're now second back from a layoff. So I like that. And this horse, I think, is going to get more conditioning, should get a nice, easy lead breaking from the outside. There's nobody else who's really going to be able to challenge this horse in terms of speed early on. Like I said, you combine that with the class drop. I just think this horse makes a lot of sense second back. And also, if you go back and look at this horse's running lines, this horse consistently gets better second back from the layoff. Last year went from running a 34 Beyer speed figure to a 49. The year before that went from running a 59 to a 72. The year before that went from a 41 to a 74. All those times were second off the bench. This horse consistently takes a step forward. Grant would need to take a step forward again, ran that 38 Beyer speed figure last time out, but I think the combination of the class drop, second back from the layoff, being able to get the easy lead, I like Rydom as a value play at 8-1 in that last race. All right, folks. Well, that's going to do it for the Monday night Capping the Card at Assiniboia Downs. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Make sure to press that subscribe button here on YouTube. Make sure to like this video, comment below with your best pick, and make sure to come back on Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, and hang out with us on Trust the Profits as we talk you through the whole card on Monday night on the live stream, Monday Night Lights at Assiniboia Downs. Until next time, friends, my name is Matthew DeSantis, wishing you a great and profitable day at the races and reminding you that it's now post time.